In 2003, Lego was $800 million in debt, losing $1 million every single day. Sales had collapsed 30% in a single year, and the company was weeks from bankruptcy. Then the board did something quite suspicious. They handed the keys to a 35-year-old first-time CEO who had never worked a single day in the toy industry. He asked one question that would ultimately save the company. Today, Lego generates $13 billion in revenue. It is now bigger than Mattel, Hasbro, and Spin Master combined. And by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how he did this, how he transformed Lego into what it is today. By the way, my name is Erik, I'm a keynote speaker and author, and I'm on a mission to document 100 companies that have transformed and reinvented themselves. So in October 2004, Jürgen Vic Knudstorp became Lego's CEO at the age of 35. He was the first non-family CEO in the company's 72-year-old history. A former McKinsey consultant with no toy industry experience handed a company losing $1 million a day. So he told his management team this: "We're on a burning platform and we're running out of cash and likely won't survive." Because he was an outsider, he had no attachment to how things had been done in the past. He hadn't been inside the building when the decisions were made, and so he could see what everyone inside had stopped seeing. So through the 1990s, Lego did what most successful companies do. It grew. Leadership looked at the shifting childhood play patterns, the rise of video games, and decided that the plastic brick alone could no longer carry the business. So they started to diversify into theme parks and clothing lines and watches and action figures and television and in-house video games. And the product catalog, the bricks, swelled to over 13,000 unique items built from more than 14,000 individual brick elements. Lego's leadership in this moment hadn't been reckless. Through the late 1990s, they had followed every major principle that experts prescribed for companies facing disruption. They found competition-free markets. They sought input from diverse constituencies inside and outside the firm. They hired creative staff. They disrupted existing markets. They listened to customer feedback. They made innovation a company-wide priority. Professor David Robertson, who had spent years studying this turnaround, found that every major move had followed expert prescription. The expansion had looked correct at every stage. The clothing lines, the theme parks, all of it had a business case, a sponsor, internal approval. But the problem, as Knudstorp would later articulate, was pace. He said, "One of the rules I stick to is that you can only really build an adjacency to your core business every 3 to 5 years because it is such a major undertaking." Rather than doing one adjacency every 3 to 5 years, Lego did 3 to 5 adjacencies every year. And so that's what nearly killed them. Each decision looked correct. The accumulation of them made too fast and without the operational foundation to support them is what became the crisis. And so his response ran against every instinct in the room. As Knudstorp put it, we didn't have a strategy, we just had an action plan. And one of the very first things he did with his action plan was to start cutting. This is a theme that we see across most reinventions and transformations. It's almost always the first step. Knudstorp slashed across the business. He slashed unique brick elements from over 12,000 to below 7,000. He sold the 4 Legoland theme parks for $460 million and shut down clothing lines, publishing operations, in-house video game development. He also cut more than 1,000 jobs. Every unit that couldn't directly justify its contribution to the core building experience, he closed. He organized innovation rather than eliminating it. Under the new structure, anyone from the sales force to headquarters could propose new avenues for growth, but every idea had to pass one test. Was it consistent with Lego being recognized as the best company for family products? The standard was very specific and it excluded most of what the previous decade had approved. The old regime expanded without a filter, but the new one applied a very specific filter. Knudstorp later described the creative principle he took from the whole experience. He said many creative people are finding that creativity doesn't just grow in abundance, it grows from scarcity. The constraint was the strategy. And within 2 years, the numbers proved it. Within 2 years, operating margin climbed from 2.4% to about 15%. And during the 2008 global crisis, while most companies contracted, Lego's profits quadrupled. This result wasn't because of luck. The financial crisis hit the toy industry pretty broadly. Lego quadrupled its profits in the same environment because the business was simple enough to execute well. The franchise partnerships that followed from Star Wars to Harry Potter to the Lego movie in 2014 worked for the same reason the broader recovery worked. They extended the brick. They brought new audiences to the same core experience without changing what the product was. They were the right kind of adjacency, each one giving the brick new worlds to build. By 2015, Lego had overtaken Mattel as the world's largest toy company. In fiscal year 2025, Lego reported a 12% jump in revenue, with consumer sales outpacing the broader industry by a significant margin. Total revenue reached approximately $13 billion, meaning it's larger than all of its competitors combined. Anyone running a business today has approved some version of Lego's clothing line. Your logic was sound, your business case clear at the gates. But the question that Knutstorp was willing to ask, and most leadership teams avoid, is whether the collection of all of these decisions point in the right direction. In 2003, Lego had 13,000 products, $800 million in debt, and no clear picture of where it made or lost money. In 2025, it has $13 billion in revenue, one core product, and a filter that every new idea has to pass. Knutstorp didn't save Lego by adding something. He saved it by asking what needed to go. Because the thing that's killing you is often the thing that you are most proud of. And so the question for us to really ask is, what is one initiative in your business that everyone loves, that nobody questions, and that might be quietly pulling you away from the thing that actually made you matter?